And you're right. I think that this procedure, the sentence structure is much better. The flow of procedure is much better than what the level 3 overall anchor has. So, do you agree that it's thorough?
I do.
One of the things I wanted to focus was on word choice and the sentence structure. So when we went into doing procedural writing, that was one of the focuses that I looked at. So we grabbed some mentor texts and looked at them and dived in and said, okay, well, these are examples of the best writing that we can do. And we took them apart and we looked at all the verbs and how they set up their sentences. And I found that the students were able to say, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and they were able to improve on that. And you see it in their other writing as well. That once we tore apart the text form and then focused on the type of language that are in there, we had a checklist and looked at those and said, okay, well, this is the type of writing, this is what it looks like, this is how the conventions, the communication would look. And the students were able to say, oh, okay, yeah, I know that's what I'm aiming for.
So here you've got a child that's doing very well. He's pretty well a solid 4. So where do we go next for him as far as his writing skills?
Well, one thing that I did notice, after I had the students do this piece, they had a reflective journal that they wrote in to see what they did well, and they were able to look at their writing and also the presentation. And what I found with some of the students in class was that they weren't very good at looking at what they did well as writers. They improved because they were looking at, they had the checklist and they had these mentor texts, and I think that's maybe one of the things that we saw with this student, that he improved because he knew what he was aiming for and he was able to kind of look at that checklist and do that. But I think that one of the next steps that we could do is make sure that he's more metacognitive of what he did well as a writer, so that he knows and can apply that to other writing pieces, other text forms. So I think one of the next steps for the whole class would be to look at what did I do well as a writer. So maybe to do some group work where they're able to see.
The Ontario curriculum here, one of those specific expectations focuses on metacognition. So really thinking about your thinking and being reflective about your learning process and being able to articulate where are you in that learning process and how can you move forward. So identify a variety of strategies they used before, during, and after writing, explain which ones were most helpful, and suggest further steps they can take to improve as writers.
Yeah, so that's one of the steps that I would work with my class.
So, yeah, and I guess having a reflective journal and modeling metacognitive strategies when you're doing your read-alouds, when you're doing your modeled writing, thinking aloud those specific strategies and where you are in the learning process to articulate that. It also, because your summative task was so encompassing of all the literacy skills, as far as media literacy, the writing for a purpose and an audience, and the videotaping of it, and the oral presentation, the speaking and the listening. Here's another expectation that can really connect well. It's the interconnected skills. So having students be able to describe how their skills in listening, speaking, reading, viewing, and representing help in developing their writing skills. So all of that put together, and that can follow quite closely with your metacognition.
And especially, well, I know when they reflected, as far as their presentation, their voice not being monotone was one of the things that the student said that he needed to work on. I also gave him that feedback, and also it was really neat because the class also, as a whole, reflected on every presentation. So they gave that feedback to the students. So that they can say, oh, this is what I need to improve on, and apply that, whether it's presenting a science project in class or any kind of oral presentation that they have to give, so they grow.
So there's some really good next steps there for the majority of your students.